Welcome to the Duval Dive. I am your host, Travis D. Holmes with BigCatCountry.com, the Belize Podcast Network. And we are here from the Miller Electric Center practice fields for the Jacksonville Jaguars Teal and White Game. For those of you who may have missed it, hey, I'm here to try to give you your biggest takeaways, your observations, and everything else that you kind of just missed from this Friday affair. I know many of y'all got to work. I get it. So to start things off, it wasn't the greatest day overall when you're talking about the Jacksonville Jaguars offensive unit, the starting offensive unit. A little bit up and down, but that's kind of sort of to be expected if you have a defense that's worth their salt. And so you have the offensive line being one of the bigger takeaways of the day, especially when you're looking on the socials, a lot of ones versus twos. So you don't know who the sacks are coming against. So we'll start with the biggest piece first. Obviously, Cole Van Lannon didn't participate. Same thing with Garrett DiGiorgio, with both of them being on the active PUP list. And you had a light day for certain Jaguars, like Jacksonville starters, Josh Hines-Allen, and also Foye Oluokun. Coach Cohen confirmed that it was just a lighter day for them. They were dressed. They were good as far as that piece is concerned. BJ Green. BJ Green kicked some butt. And that's what, that's just kind of what one of those commenters are commenting on right now. I heard BJ Green kick some butt today, and he did. He had, I believe, by my last count, 4 sacks on the day and 2 tackles for a loss. He had 2 of those sacks and 1 of those tackles for a loss within like a 5-play span. But a lot of that, to someone's question on the socials, asked me, "Hey, who was these sacks against?" You had 2 of them against Jim Abedego. You had 1 against the international player. I forget his name. Kyler, the IPP player for the Jaguars. So if you're going to have the conversation of, is this an offensive line issue? Is this a defensive line just being dominant kind of conversation? Well, then we should also point out that, yes, BJ Green balled out of his mind today. But also, yes, it was against the backup caliber players. And BJ Green, I think, has given you enough to believe that he is closer to a starting caliber defensive edge. So, yes, he balled out of control against the guys he should have balled out of control for. And that's a great pat on the back for him. But that should also let you know that maybe he's going to be able to close the door on that defensive edge, rotational defensive edge position, unless Zach Durfee. That's the interesting part of the conversation, because we've talked about Zach Durfee on so many practices, the 2026 Prospect X. And he, again, had a great day. And against the starters, he went against Walker Little on the opening drive and had himself a would-be sack. Walker Little at right tackle at the time. And I'm like, oh, man, just another day, another Zach Durfee sack. Okay, he's stacking them up. BJ Green has had some good days and some not as noticeable days. But overall, it's a great situation for the Jaguars, because they are playing really well whenever they give those rotational edges some additional sacks, some additional snaps. Now, Trevor Lawrence on the offensive side of things, he had a quiet day early on before connecting with Parker Washington on 2 times on the 3rd drive of the day. He was super sharp in that 15 to 25 yard range. That's kind of who Trevor is. That makes some sense. But also, he did have, I would say, if there's any negative on the day, it was the one overthrow for Jacoby Myers inside of the hashes, about 35 to 40 yards down the field. He missed them by about 4 to 5 yards, but he made it up. He made up for it later in that drive. He connected with Josh Cameron. He then connected with Parker Washington to get them inside of the red zone, and finally closed the door with a great throw to Brian Thomas Jr. at the back of the end zone to kind of still score a touchdown on the drive. No harm, no foul. You kind of keep it moving. And more importantly, on that throw, it was one of those trust throws. I can't say the exact route, but you can say BTJ was covered when the ball was thrown. He trusted that his receiver was going to be in the right spot and kind of threw him open in that process. So you love to see that from the Jaguars starting receiver and Jaguars starting quarterback. They're kind of on the same page. They understand where each other's going to be, and that is a great situation. Now, I did speak to Coach Cohen after practice and asked him about how does he feel about near interceptions that occur in training camp, testing your limits of your receivers, testing your limits of your quarterbacks. And he did mention that near interception by Trevor Lawrence on the opening drive of camp of today's practice. I believe it was Jabbar Muhammad who dropped the easy, it was a predetermined throw. It should have been an interception. And apparently it was a miscommunication with Brian Thomas Jr. and Trevor Lawrence, where it's one of those plays where Brian Thomas can run it into a post, or he can make it into a deep ball. And between their timing, that wasn't where they wanted it to be, and they weren't on the same page on where the route was going. So it looked like a very bad throw for those in the audience. Many people texted me about it, asking me about it, but apparently it was just kind of one of those things where the quarterback expected one thing, the wide receiver expected another thing, and they just got to get on the same page there. But overall, I thought it was a reasonably fine day for Trevor. Again, up and down depending on the period you're talking about. But if you take away that near interception, you're probably just saying, hey, it was a fine day for the offense. It was a pretty good day for the defense, especially the number one defense versus the backup offense because of that pass rush just being so dang dominant. Again, Zach Durfee, BJ Green, those are sort of your guys to let you know that this could be something. If you need rotational edge since the loss of he who will not be named that went to the Tennessee Titans, the quote-unquote mayor of Jacksonville, then you will say, all right, they actually might have something now. They have options, multiple options at edge, and that is a good thing for the Jacksonville Jaguars. If you're looking for a play of the day, I'm probably going with Buster Brown's, Montaric Brown's interception of Nick Mullins. That was it for me. He climbed the ladder, kept his eyes on the quarterback, covering Jamari Taylor out down the sideline, keeps his eyes on Nick Mullins the entire time, climbs the ladder and brings it down. Great play. It was textbook. If you're someone teaching defensive back coverage, that's what it was. So that was probably my play of the day. Again, it has to be defense because defense had a great day. And despite the fact that they weren't playing with two of their stalwarts, two of their cornerstones of the defense. I see a few of you in the comments asking about the linebacker position. Nothing I saw on Friday really moves the needle on the Ventrell Miller versus Branson Combs competition. Like, neither really jumped off the field in either a negative way or a positive way from my perspective. Just not a lot of splash plays to speak of there. When you're talking about the right guard position, Wyatt Milam, the Walker Little versus Patrick McCarry, that right guard competition, that one, that's going to have a potential to move all over the place over the coming week with joint practices and everything else. But for today, there was a lot going on because we saw the normal starting left side of the line with Anton Harrison at right tackle, Ezra Cleveland at right guard, and Wyatt Milam at but then and then Robert Hainsey at center. But then all of a sudden they had goodness gracious, Jonah Monheim at right guard and Wyatt Milam at right tackle. And I'm like, dang, I haven't seen a lot of that combination before. Okay, cool. Let's see how this goes. So then Milam starts off with a rough false start. And then he gives up a sack to Zach Durfee. Again, Zach Durfee had multiple sacks today. And then he kind of stabilized from that point moving forward. So it was a little bit up and down depending on how you view it. Jonah Monheim had a good day, just outright. Good day at right guard. But then you're talking the right tackle with Wyatt Milam. That was a little bit up and down, but I thought he stabilized late. So we'll see how that looks, because as you continue trying to see what combinations you have at that offensive line, you want to see, can Monheim be more than just the guard? Can he be a true swing tackle option? Because then that gives you more options with Walker Little. That gives you more options with Patrick McCarry, depending on how those competitions go. And so we'll see what that is. We told folks, I don't even know what it was, months ago, man. 2 months ago, 3 months ago, that there was a good chance that CBL would have, he would likely start the season on the PUP. He did. They're at the PUP. And that he might be back week 1, but it could take a few weeks. It could be week 3, week 4, something along those lines. We will see where that goes. But we had a whole episode talking about, we looked at a case study from 100 plus NFL players over the last 20 plus years who've had the same injury that his reported injury is. And most of those players they would have been back around that week 1 to week 5 time frame. So I'm going to have the same exact conversation with CBL. Again, I think he looks great when we see him playing on the field. So I think that probably could work itself out, but maybe they don't want any re-injury risk or anything along those lines, unless he has that Adrian Peterson type of DNA. They need options at that offensive line. So I see what they're doing. I see that's why it's going on. And that's also why you could argue that that's the defensive edges are getting some of those sacks, because they're just trying to find the right combinations. I get it from all areas. These are one-on-ones, and defenses happen to be winning them right now. So shout out BJ Green, shout out Zach Durfee. In the safety room, The only one I would have to really say something about, like, you got Eric Murray, and you got Antonio Johnson. Those are going to be your starting safeties. AJ had a great punch out of a pass today from Quentin Morris that resulted in Morris actually getting nicked up. He's going to get checked out later tonight per Liam Cohen. You've got Jalen Husky, Ray Lane, and Caleb Ransaw basically fighting for that third safety spot, that big nickel spot. And Lane had a really good competitive reps against Tanner Kozel, actually like 3 of them in the red zone period. And Caleb Ransaw had a couple of nice run stops in the red zone period that I'm like, all right, way to get your face in there. That was my big takeaway. So, but otherwise, no real splash plays given up and no real other splash plays made there. Just got done talking to Bayshaw Tootin a second ago. And with the Bayshaw Tootin, Chris Rodriguez running back, backfield situation, it feels very clear to me. And again, just my opinion, it's still going to be a timeshare situation unless there's any offseason, injuries or anything along those lines. They're running a lot of explosive runs today, a lot of tough runs, muddy runs, 4 yards, 5 yards, guys like that. Like they weren't tackling, just kind of thudding in that way. So, yeah, you weren't really seeing much of that, and I don't see much of anything that took place today that's going to really change that. You're still going to probably have a 50-50 timeshare or a 50-60 timeshare, depending on who you favor, because Bayshaw Tootin gives you something that Chris Rodriguez doesn't. He's just way too explosive. He's good in the passing game, and he's shifty. Rodriguez is going to give you that tough running. He's falling forward. He's going to give you that downhill presence that you absolutely need as that bruiser, as Liam Cohen calls him, the glass eater. So, yeah, for the most part, the team needs both of those guys, and they needed to reshape their running game, and both of those guys in combination will do that for the team. And lastly, I guess we'll wrap this thing up talking about the depth cornerback role, because I had some multiple arguments with multiple people in the media talking about this in our projections of the final 53. That Christian Broswell, Jabbar Muhammad conversation is a great one, because Christian's just recently returned over the last few practices from, not being able to practice early on in the offseason, whereas Jabbar Muhammad's kind of been balling with his opportunities that we've seen from the former undrafted free agent. So he made a lot of early plays, like early on, like he was challenged a little bit. Again, he dropped the interception on the long BTJ route. Like, if he would have brought that in, that would have been big for his chances. But yeah, when we're looking at the calculus there, because again, we didn't see much. All we can say is special teams wise, you have Christian Broswell, who has special teams experience. Jabbar Muhammad, when you're looking at the punt return teams and the punt teams earlier today, you see him out there running with the early groups. That could mean something. Maybe it won't. But I just thought that was interesting. But any of you that are in, if you're a Jacksonville Jaguars fan and you are in the Duval County area, please do not forget James Coleman's Backpack Drive is taking place at Long Beach Elementary this Saturday at 10 a.m. Check out the link in the bio and in the description for that to register. If any of you have kids that's going back to school, need a free backpack. It's already stocked with supplies and all of that. So definitely check out jcolemangivesback.com. And again, the link is in the bio. But that's pretty much what we have from you guys from the Miller Electric Center. Let me know if you have anything else that you want, any other questions you guys might have. Shout out to Fred the Jig. Shout out to the Sun Stain in the comments. Robbie, we appreciate you, bro. Josh Cameron, he had a quiet day today. But then again, that's not a bad thing. It's just kind of how it goes. You have up and down days, but he's done great as far as blocking. And Parker Washington clone, and he's his own person, but you knew it when he drafted, and he was sort of built in that same mold. I think that's basically the gist of it. But yeah, overall, it's a Zach Durfee, BJ Green type day. And I think every analyst is going to tell you that same thing, because they balled out of control. But again, they did also have much of that success against backups, whereas Zach Durfee did it against Walker Little. That could mean something. Maybe it could mean nothing. But y'all let me know. Duval, enjoy y'all weekend.